Hey everyone, I'm Jared Samuels,
And I'm Sophie Stinnett.
and welcome to another episode of What's Behind the Game, where you'll get an exclusive look at how all your favorite athletes eat, train, and anything else you'd like to know. Today we have Paige Carter, who is a cross-country runner at UCLA, so welcome.
Welcome,
Hi,
Paige.
thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so just to start out, if you want to just dive into what your story is and how you got into running, from the beginning.
Yeah, of course. So I was very involved in sports from a young age, but I started off actually as a gymnast. So when I was younger in elementary school, I did gymnastics for a few years, and then transitioned into soccer and played soccer for 9 years.
That's a lot
So
of
that
running.
was like, yeah, exactly. That was most of my childhood, and I was never like the best at soccer. I was just good at the running part of it. And so that's where I kind of was like, oh, maybe I should try running. So I had a few friends on my soccer team actually that did cross country. So when I was in eighth grade, I decided to like try out for club track and cross country. So yeah, so that's when I started doing that, and then kind of got into it there and had some success with it or pretty early on. So I decided to try out for the team in high school, which my brother was also on.
Uh,
um, yeah, and so then from there I kind of just took the normal route, but yeah, definitely didn't have like the biggest background in running from the get-go. Is kind of a few other sports, and then as like kind of progressed and got older, I was like, oh, maybe I should try to focus on this a little bit more.
yeah, I remember my dad telling me when I grew up, you need to learn to pole jump or something. He's like,
Oh yeah,
he's
pole
like,
vault.
pole vault, you'll get a scholarship off that. You need to learn how to do that. And people really do learn how to do it and get one, throughout.
Right.
So you said you started in eighth grade when you started being competitive, doing competitive running.
Yeah. So I mean, I would run like at school and stuff like that. We had
Mhm.
like different track things going on. But yeah, didn't start like competitively running in a jersey until eighth grade.
Okay.
And even when I was running then for my club team, it was very low key. Like I
Yeah.
maybe would like, go. I would do races and stuff. But, like I didn't really know what I was doing. I was
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean. I was kind of
It
just
wasn't the same
out
as high
there.
school.
Exactly. So it was fun because it kind of, taught me to like love the sport first before like taking it too seriously.
Mhm.
But it's kind of funny looking back on it now because yeah, I didn't know what I was doing.
You're just going.
Yeah,
Exactly.
when you started in eighth grade and up to starting your freshman year of college, what was your running schedule like, or what was your training schedule like?
Yeah. Well, so like I mentioned at first, it was definitely very low key as far as like training went. Once I made the transition over to high school running, it was definitely a lot more structured. So I think in youth track, we only had practice maybe 2 or 3 times a week, whereas when I got to high school, I was running 6 to 7 days a week.
Mhm.
So that was definitely a big transition. And then as far as like working out and stuff went, it was definitely like a lot more like higher intensity workouts when I got to high school. And that was just like kind of the nature of the sport. Like as you get older, you can kind of obviously handle, some harder workouts. And then of course my coach, kind of saw potential in me in high school and whatnot. So it was like, okay, maybe we can kind of train her up a little bit. And then definitely saw that next jump once I got to collegiate athletics with just workouts, starting to get more intense and harder and whatnot. So yeah, every time I kind of made the move up, you could definitely tell the difference in the training.
Got more and more intense.
Yeah, exactly.
What schools were in play for you, and like why did you decide ultimately to go to UCLA?
Yeah. Well, at first, so in high school, I had good times and whatnot. I was having some success, but I wasn't like a top recruit by any means for like, bigger name Division I schools like UCLA. So a lot of it was kind of just like me reaching out to schools and being like, hey, here are my times, here are my grades, are you interested, type of thing. And so I was like good enough to be a recruited walk on, not necessarily like good enough for scholarship. So a lot of the schools I looked at were like smaller D1 schools or like bigger D2 schools. So I talked with UCSD for a while, and USD because I'm from San Diego. So yeah, those were some schools down San Diego, also Cal State San Marcos. But then I ultimately decided I wanted to go to a bigger school. So obviously I was talking with UCLA, and then I took an official visit up to Washington State University. as well, which was a really cool experience. Really liked getting to check that school out too. But ultimately, when I came to campus at UCLA, they took me through like their Hall of Fame, and they just have like all of these like exhibits basically with kind of all of the greats that have gone through here, and just being able to see like the athletic and academic history that the school had to offer was just something that I like didn't want to pass up. I knew it was something I wanted to try to contribute to. So it was kind of one of those ones, those stories where they say like, oh, you'll know when you know. Like
Yeah,
when I
for
set foot on
sure.
campus, yeah, I was like, oh, I want to come here. So it definitely made the decision easy,
It's not like
but
home already. You were like, let's go.
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So you kind of talked about the transition from like high school to college. What would you say the transition was, and how you train from running and then how you train off of the track? Like those things like
Yeah,
weights and eating.
right. So I would say for me personally, like actually the biggest thing I've probably learned in college is that like of course training is important, but like your recovery or what you do kind of like outside of running is just as important. Because if you think of it in terms of like your competition, everyone is gonna be doing like the basic running and the
Yeah.
basic workouts and training, but like not everyone's going to be getting the same recovery or like fueling the right way, or lifting weights as often or doing like the extra things.
Mhm.
So definitely here at UCLA, they've like emphasized to kind of like recover just as well as you would train. So for us, that means making sure, we're fueling 20 to 30 minutes after our runs, just getting in some protein and carbs to kind of just like replenish those sources. We're in the weight room like 3 times a week. That was definitely an adjustment coming into college. In high school, I would like lift weights occasionally, but not as consistently as that. So that was definitely an
Yeah.
adjustment for me my first year. But now that I'm in my third year here, it's definitely something I'm much more accustomed to, and I've actually found like a lot of success in. So I really like weight training. We also do like mobility stuff in the weight room. So we're never like, as distance runners, we're not like, lifting.
Bulking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Trying
it's
to get
not,
huge.
it probably doesn't look super cool. But like it's a lot of like mobility and just injury prevention things. So
Yeah.
that's been super beneficial.
So I have a couple friends that ran track at UT. So I went to UT,
Okay,
and they used to talk about indoor season versus outdoor season. So how
right.
do you train? Do you train differently for the two,
I
or are they
see.
both the same?
I would say like the biggest difference in training between indoor and outdoor, at least for me specifically in my program, is just that the time of year. So like the way like I kind of have like oriented my goals is, to try to like peak at our conference meets or during championship season, I guess you'd say. So that comes at the end of winter, which would be like conference, and yeah, for indoor track, and then again at the end of season for outdoor track, which would be like conference, regionals, nationals, etc. So because of that, like the winter is definitely a lot more of like base training, just trying to kind of get in the miles. We kind of use indoor season to like build up into outdoor season.
Yeah.
So this past indoor season, I had been racing the mile a lot. So kind of would just like kept giving the mile another go. And so I could like get my time down to the point where going into outdoor season kind of would set me up nicely, hopefully for a personal record in those first few races to try to make my regional mark. Obviously, with Corona, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely I would say just the biggest difference is just the way we view our training is winter's kind of like gearing up for outdoor being like the big opener of like, we're fit, look at us type of thing.
Yeah.
So
More eyes.
yeah, exactly.
And
Plus another, I
oh,
guess,
go
sorry,
ahead.
another
No, go ahead.
difference is just like being on the West Coast, indoor track is like, I would say maybe not as big
Yeah.
here as it is as some other schools, just because like we can train outside year round, so like there aren't
Yeah.
even any, I don't think there are any indoor tracks in California. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we travel, we go most up to Seattle at UW to race there, and then a few meets out in Albuquerque, and then one in New York. So like our travel is kind of hefty. It's not like we have
Yeah.
our own indoor track or can go somewhere close. So that also kind of changes the way we train and whatnot.
Mhm. And you mentioned like trying to hit a new personal record. When I looked at your bio, trying to write down some questions, it seemed like
Mhm.
every year you hit a new one. So can you talk about how you've
Yeah.
improved from freshman year on to now?
Yeah, of course. Um, well, so personally for me coming in, like I was kind of mentioning before, like I was definitely recruited as more of like a walk-on. So I think when I was recruited, the coach I had at the time just kind of saw more like potential in me, like kind of like, oh, I want to try to develop this athlete. So I definitely think I had a lot of room to grow. Coming into college, I was like a 5:05 miler. And then about a month ago, I ran 4:52 in the mile. So yeah, definitely knocked some time off my mile time, which has been pretty exciting. And I would just like attribute that to just consistency. It takes time, especially with this sport, just to kind of like get the miles under your belt, get the hang of what you're doing, and really adapt to like a training style. So my coach now I've had obviously for a few years, and he's really been able to kind of figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And we've been able to kind of toy with that throughout the seasons. But definitely for me, it's just been getting the miles under my legs. I tried to keep my mileage high without, getting injured. So that's, I
Yeah.
think, been the biggest difference for me.
So, can you talk about usually on the run and what is it and why did you start it?
Yeah, of course. So usually on the run is like an Instagram account I run, I guess. I guess you could kind of call it like a blog. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a magazine type of thing. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
just on Instagram though. But basically like my goal with it is just to try to like create a community around running because since I've been running, for a while now, I've just met so many cool people who have so many different stories. And it's just inspiring. I mean, it's hard to get up every morning, and go run.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not exactly what you want to do. So being able to just kind of share people's stories and things they've overcome, but just also, cool things they've accomplished or maybe things that they're doing outside of running. It just kind of been a cool way to share that. And
Yeah.
then also one of my like interests outside of running, I just really like graphic design and like social media and just media platforms in general because I think they're just a super cool way to connect people. And so I thought like this was kind of a cool way to combine the two. So it's really something I just kind of started to do for fun, and I've met a lot of cool people through it. So yeah, it's definitely been a fun experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we talked about kind of you, younger runner, to now how much you've changed. What are your top 3 recommendations for young athletes?
Top three. Okay. I definitely say my first one is just to like try all sports because I mean, for me, like having a background in soccer, but also, getting to do other things growing up, I think kind of kept like my passion alive for running because it's not like I've been doing it since I was like 5, and like got burnt out by the time I
Yeah.
got here. I feel like
Mhm.
it allowed me to kind of just try all sorts of things. And I feel like when you're young, especially, is like you don't have to be like super great. Like I know, I have tons of teammates that like weren't really athletic as kids, and now they're like Division 1 athletes. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, my first piece of advice would just be like do it all, try tons of different sports and just have fun with it. Second piece of advice, I guess this would be more like applicable towards maybe like high school runners, but don't like sell yourself short. Like for me, I was having a lot of success, like as far as like locally went, like in my
Mhm.
hometown, but like on the bigger scheme of things, like I wasn't like a big name or anything. And but I like didn't let that discourage me,
Yeah.
from pursuing collegiate athletics. And I remember one time a coach, I went to this running camp, and one of the collegiate coaches was like, you know how many colleges there are out there? Like there's a team that wants you on it somewhere. Like you just have to find
Yeah,
it.
for
So
sure.
yeah, so I guess that kind of goes into my third piece of advice when you're looking for colleges, just like send out emails. Even if like the worst thing that's going to happen is like a coach is going to email you, either A, they're not going to email you back, or B, they're going to email you back and be like, oh, no, thank you. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
okay, yeah.
And I
So,
feel like they can
I mean,
always reach back out to you as well.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
always
it's so
I feel like
true.
that
Yeah.
happens.
And honestly, like I sent out so many emails to so many different schools, and
Mhm.
everyone was so nice. Like no one was ever
Yeah.
like, "No, you suck." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Like,
if I
Yeah.
wasn't what they were looking for, it was never like it never took like a shot of my confidence. They were always
yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
like, "You know what? Like these are the times we'd like you to hit. Like please keep in touch. Like
Yeah.
it was, so yeah, so I just would really like suggest for people, if collegiate athletics in any sport is something that they want to consider, to just reach out, because it won't hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much
Yes. Thank you
coming
so
on.
much.
Of
for all the time.
course. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really fun chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Stay safe. Stay clean. Stay
Yes.
disciplined.
You guys too.
You.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.